Hi everyone, it's Rob Watson, the module leader for TECH1502 Introduction to Community Media. What I'm going to do in this short video presentation is just give you a sense of what's going to come up in the lecture, the kind of reading that you should be doing to supplement the issues that we'll discuss in the lecture, where you can get the notes and what the supplementary material is to watch and listen to that's available via the DMU Commons wiki. So if you want to find out, if you want to go to the notes in advance or afterwards, after the lecture, just go to the DMU Commons wiki, which is at wiki.our.dmu.ac.uk, and either search for the TECH1502 page or go via the menu, and then the drop-down menu will show you where it is in the module section. I've produced the PowerPoint presentation for the lecture. I won't be sharing the PowerPoint itself. If there's any essential images or diagrams that's contained within the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, then I'll include them in the lecture notes. The lecture notes are available via the wiki as a downloadable PDF. You can convert any PDF documents I post related to the module into a Word document if you need to adapt it, but that's posted up online already. You just go to the Lecture 3 section. The subject that we're going to talk about this week is going to be what is community? We've looked in the first week asking the question why community media is different from mainstream media. And then in this last week's lecture, we looked at the idea that community media is comprised of certain kinds of practices and certain ways of approaching the idea of producing your own media. So on the one hand, it's thought of sometimes as being, if you like, a resistant form of media to the mainstream, or a kind of grassroots and bottom-up approach to producing our own media. At some point in this, a sense of community is able to form and give shape. So we want to ask some questions then, kind of just opening up the debates and the discussion, if you like. Ask some questions about then what is community? What do we mean by the term community? So the kind of things that we're going to cover in this is we'll look at the idea of, if you like, the official recognition of what communities are thought to be by the Ofcom, which is the broadcast regulator, and how they regulate community media. So what they say about community media and how they pitch the notion of access and community radio. But we'll also look at the idea of, sometimes when you're thinking about community, you're thinking about something which is of a former age. So we'll look at the idea of Robert Putnam, who wrote a book called Bowling Alone, based around the idea of the decline of the sense of community life within American society after the Second World War. And it's kind of quite instructive, the things that people think of as being community in the past, and where we are in the present with the kind of commercial, consumer-driven, individualistic kind of lifestyles that we are encouraged perhaps to lead. So that brings us on to kind of thinking about different ways of understanding communities. And one of the ways that we understand a sense of community is through our identity. Now, our identity is formed both in and through our community involvements. And likewise, our sense of engagement and participation in community life is something that we define for ourselves, if you like, or is defined in the way that we engage and how we engage. Another kind of common form is communities of interest. So things like fan communities. Can you be part of a community of a fan network? If you're a Harry Potter fan or a Leicester City football fan, what does that mean for your sense of community, and how do people attach value and meaning to the interactions that they have with other people, and are they reciprocated? I mean, one of the key questions we should ask all the way through when we're testing this sense of community is, does this enable people to belong, to feel that they are part of something? So the notes are posted up on the via the wiki. There's a couple of things that you can read as well. There's a kind of work guide which is produced by UNESCO, which is the United Nations organization. about what is community, and it's an interesting kind of background read that asks some good questions about what we mean by community. There's also a document which I've posted up based on some of the writings I've done about this, which is about alternative and activist media. So that might give you a background into, you don't have to read, it's quite dense and long, so you don't need to read it all in one go, but it could give you some background information about where we're coming from with this. And then there's the second episode of the Whatever Happened to Community episode, which is a BBC Radio 4 programme about the idea of what community is. And this particular episode is about that kind of nostalgic idea of what community is like. So if you get a chance to look at these beforehand, that's great. If not, just come to the lecture and let it unfold. Take plenty of notes, bring your notebooks and pens. It isn't a case of just sitting there listening to me. You've got to do some writing and some note-taking as well. Pointers in the direction that you need to go. If I go off script and I start talking about something which is not in the lecture notes, you might want to note that down. The lecture notes are quite extensive, but there's other things that we could talk about at the same time. So I hope to see you next week. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll speak to you soon.